Booktube, are we okay? Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to another video in which I just kind of talk about something that occurred to me related to books and reading, and that is the relationship that seems to be in existence and seems to be kind of a focus of some attention right now on Booktube, and that's the connection between reading and death. I realize this is not necessarily a pleasant topic. I don't mean to offend or, hurt anybody's feelings or, create any kind of trauma for anybody by talking about this, but there seems to be a lot of Booktube videos, at least the ones, channels I subscribe to and see, which are kind of focused on something related to with time or death. I don't want to call any of these channels out because I don't want it to seem like, well, number one, I'm not making fun of any of them because I have my own kind of fixation with death that I'll talk about just in a minute and how it affects reading. But I don't want to make it like a thing where it seems like I'm targeting people. But there are people, who have made videos about how they are going to reclaim some of their time from reading and not let reading dominate their lives because there are other things they want to do. There are people who have, lists either that they've generated or that are in a book of how these books are the ones you have to read before you die, and they read from those. And I think that's great because I think what those people are primarily doing is setting priorities for themselves, but in another case they are reading books to see what their reaction is to them that come from a list that someone else oftentimes generated. I think that's great. There is the Memento Mori tag, which is going around on Booktube and has been for some time. I've seen a resurgence of that as well. So it just seems like that a lot of readers, perhaps just booktubers, are connecting reading with death in their minds, that there's some kind of connection there. And I've kind of wondered what that is. Now, one reason why I'm making this video is to confess to you that I've done and do the exact same thing. My excuse for not taking on a lot of really big books is that I have a limited amount of time and I'd rather read more smaller books than fewer bigger books. That as slow as I read, a 900-page book is a real investment of my remaining life. And so I kind of joke around that, I can't afford to be reading these big books. That time has passed. And, I'm joking to a certain extent, but in another way, I'm serious. For me, a more rewarding use of my time would be to get through 3 books instead of 1. That's just one of those things, I think, to experience 3 different books instead of just 1 book for a really long period of time. And I've been trying to think, why is there this fixation now, perhaps with in the Booktube community or connecting reading and death? And so I thought of a number of things. One, is it just the times? We just really are still involved in a pandemic which has taken the lives of millions of people worldwide. Are we just more thinking about death and health and those issues and the limited amount of time that goes along with it? Is there a connection between thoughts of death and reading? Because when we're reading, we're probably really aware of how much time is going by and how much time we invest in reading a book. If you're like me, I constantly am counting the pages that I have left. No matter how much I'm enjoying a book, I am constantly counting the pages that I have left in that book, so I know how much longer I have, and that then makes me aware of time. And being aware of time, maybe that's what makes us aware of death. Is it that so many books have death as a part of their theme or a feature within the book? Could that be it? Is there some kind of feeling that we have to make the most out of every moment of our time? Otherwise, we're wasting our life, wasting the limited amount of time we have, that drives us to try to read books and get things out of it and feel productive and feel like we're getting smarter or feel like we're learning more or feel like we're understanding better. Is that what it is? And is that how we make this connection? I think all those are possibilities, but as I always say, if you have ideas about this, please leave those down in the comments section below. What really kind of provoked this video, though, for me was a video made a couple of days ago, or probably a week ago now, by Cliff Sargent, whose channel is Better Than Food. Huge channel. Cliff is one of those people whose channel I watched, one of the first channels I watched when I started watching Booktube, because he read books that I had read or that I was interested in reading. I think he has a great channel, and I'm not really calling him out, but I did think there was something interesting in this video that he made about 6 mistakes that new readers make that kind of destroy their reading. The number 6 thing he said was they don't make time for reading. Well, this is true. You know, I mentioned this in a video I made this year about how to read more, is you have to make time for reading. But what interested me about this, and the way he put it was, he looked at his shelves, he says, if you have 3 IKEA shelves, which is exactly how many I have, full of books, then in all likelihood, you're not going to read all those books before you die. Now, his point was that, you know, that means you need to make time for reading, schedule time for reading perhaps, so that you make sure you read, because you're for sure not going to get through them if you don't make time for reading. And, you know, that's a perfectly valid point and one I agree with, but it interested me that the very first thing he thought about was associating reading books and the limited amount of time you have and death with reading, and death as a motivation for reading. And then his number one thing that he said prevents, you know, new readers or destroys new readers' determination to be readers is not making a to be read before you die list. In other words, a bucket list of 10 books that you want to read before you die. And this is really where I thought, you know, this whole death and time and reading thing is just completely out of control, because to me that list doesn't make any sense. And there are a few reasons for this. Number one, if those are the 10 books you want to read before you die, you should be reading them right now. You should pick those 10 books and pick one up and start reading it and read them in order until they're all gone, because you have no idea how much time you have left. So to say that, you know, you should have this list of books on the shelf, you know, that you're going to read sometime before you die, seems to me to be, you know, doesn't really make sense. Additionally, if you read those 10 books, aren't you just going to come up with 10 more books that you want to read? I mean, aren't all of our TBRs books we want to read before we die? So why set aside these 10? What worries me about that idea that there are these 10 books that you want to read or feel like you have to read before you die is that oftentimes I think the books on that list are going to be ones that people consider to be important books, and that you have to read to be considered a serious reader, or someone, you know, who takes reading seriously and is trying to, you know, literally suck the marrow out of every piece of writing you read, and therefore you should only read those books which are deepest and, you know, best or acknowledged to be among the greats. I kind of have problems with that, because that leads to us kind of classifying readers as serious readers or less serious readers. And when you think about, you know, making hierarchies of readers just sounds kind of silly to me. But then ultimately the other thing I thought is, why? Why do you have to read certain books before you die? Once you're dead, it no longer matters. Once you're dead, it doesn't matter what books you've read. If you're an atheist, when you die, that's it. If you're a Christian, when you die, and if you go to heaven, the books you've read aren't going to help you get into heaven, and your experience in heaven, as far as I can tell from the Bible, isn't going to have anything to do with reading books or what books you've read or having conversations with people about the books you've read. Additionally, you could just read all the books you wanted to in that situation. You know, I'm not familiar with all the world's religions, but I don't think any of them require reading serious literature as a step towards having an afterlife. I don't really think that's true. So the whole idea that the books you have to read before you die just kind of strikes me as odd. Now, if there are books you want to read before you die, if you want to follow on those lists, I think that's great. It's a great way to explore literature and figure out what you like and what you don't like. But the idea that there are these books that you have that you feel like you have to read before you die, and you're A, not reading right now, and B, don't think you're just going to come up with another list of 10 books, and C, somehow think that it will matter when you're dead if you've read those books, those things kind of seem a little silly to me. Anyway, I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.